Thank you so much for joining me today. We are in a fun tropical backyard that we designed and installed a couple months ago. So I thought I would bring you along and share with you the plants and the trees that we chose for the area. Now, if you guys are thinking of a no grass backyard or little grass backyard, then this video might just really be up your alley because we took out all the grass and we made more of a garden setting for my clients back here. It's more of a tropical garden with a little walkway and just kind of enjoying the whole space without any maintenance of grass back here. All right, so we are over here right at the front. So just to give you guys kind of a point of reference, right here, of course, is the back side of the house. This long walkway of grass is going to go into next phase. So my clients are planning on that being a lovely walkway, just like their backyard spaces, surrounded by gardens on both sides. But that's to come. Right now, this is the start of the back garden here. And we have a collection of pink hibiscus as the backdrop here. Of course, we're in December, so they're not really in bloom, but they're gonna kind of give you a nice backdrop of color on this large 8-foot wall. We have a lovely bougainvillea multicolored tree. I just think she is such a pretty girl. We've been through some storms, so she's got a little bit of browning on her, but she is coming to life again. I'm gonna give it lots and lots of color with her white and fuchsia coloring of the leaves. And this is actually a different color on here. It is the watermelon variety. So there's a few branches of those on there, but I just think it's such a pretty, pretty little variation of color on these bougainvilleas. Down below, we have the Helen Johnson bougainvillea. So these are the dwarf bougainvillea, and it's just a touch of those kind of doing a little half circle to the front of that tree. And they, of course, have the darker tone of the pink, almost like a violet coloring in the flowers. A nice little touch there. And then down below, we have some Bloom My Minds here as our base. And then as we come up to the front, we started out with the stair-step effect of the Bloom My Minds to the Carissa boxwood, and then a nice collection of the Song of India. It's going to give a nice brightness between this dark section and that dark section. That sandwiching of a light color is going to be a really fun look. And we mimic that on the opposite side, so you can really see it starts that way and then ends that way in this bed. To the backdrop, we have 3 single trees here, and I don't use them very often because they're very hard to find, but these were existing here. They were one solid tree, like they allowed them to become a wall here, and so when we came in, we divide them, and they're really starting to flush back out and come together. But they're a nice slow growing tree, a nice slow growing hardwood. You can see these berries here, so they do produce some droppings, so that is something to consider if you're planning on using them. But I do love, love, love this leaf, the shininess to it. It reminds me a little bit of a Lucie tree, but grows 10 times slower. So if that's your thing, then that might be a nice tree to use instead. Now we have the Lucie as the backdrop. You can tell this area doesn't get a lot of sun because Lucias thin out a little bit when they don't have a lot of sun exposure, and this was also existing here, so we just worked with it. So if you do have that particular area, you might have to fertilize your Lucia more in the shade than you would in the sun, because they do just need that extra bit of nutrients to kind of help keep them nice and thick and dense and producing. At the corner, we have a triple spindle palm. Kind of gives you just a nice, soft, airy look to it. It's doing really, really well. It was existing here, so we were able to keep it. Had some deficiencies, but I can see all the new growth now after the new fertilizer and the palm saver we put on it. It's just flushing out so lovely. And then if you guys are looking for a bedding plant and you don't want a hedge, try these burl marks. These little burley marks are just the coolest little plant. They're a philodendron. They kind of cascade over and cluster together. Now, they're definitely not one you want to try on single, like one over there, and then plant grouping. They do need kind of a connection of their brothers with them. So if you do want kind of a sea of green, they do a nice job of that, and they have such a glossy leaf that I think it's just such a lovely bedding to any kind of plant grouping. So if you kind of want a jungle floor plant in the shade with a lot of acidity from leaves, this is a fantastic bedding plant to work with. And this is about the size that it gets and stays, so you can easily keep it around 2.5 to 3 foot tall. No problem. Grows super slow. Before we move on, I guess I should mention this cool pathway in the middle of the gardens. We have a garden on one side and a garden on the opposite side, and we decided to take out the old ugly sod that would not just live. The grass just does not like being underneath of these trees. Most of you guys are probably well aware of that and fighting that same battle. If that is you, then I completely get it, because grass is difficult. It was always muddy and mucky here. So when we were creating the design, I was walking it through with my client, and they love the idea of just having a soft gravel, more organic walkway here. We have a gray granite stone. It is the smallest variety, the 1/2 inch. So it's kind of, it just chunks right on your feet, really easy to walk on. I can have flip-flops on, and it's just so easy to walk on. So this is the perfect little thing to do. Of course, you guys know I like the Tahitian gray granite too. This just happened to be the gray granite that was in stock. So either one of them works super, super well, and it kind of does the job back here. We didn't want anything too polished because this is a soft tropical planting. They have the polished look all by the pool and the seating section and all that's going on there, which is absolutely lovely. And then as you step further back into the garden, you get more of that, just that tropical feel, that more like grab a glass of wine and walk through the garden, through the pathway. And that's what they wanted, and that's what we created for them. And it's starting to come together really lovely, but we'll continue to watch it unfold over the next few months. Those of you guys who have not subscribed, please subscribe. We post every single weekend, and we would love to see you every Saturday. Hit that notification bell and you will know that we have a video coming out every Saturday. All right, so now we're back here kind of at the beginning. So from the main housing area, right from the main seating section, which is always important for me to see, is to have good balance on both sides. So you guys, if you have 2 corner areas and you're able to balance those 2 corner sections out and mimic each other, that's a great thing to do, because when you're looking at it from one central location, whether it's the kitchen window or the back patio doors or the pool area, whatever that might be, having 2 anchored areas is perfect. Now, we didn't have a lot of sun to work with, so I ended up choosing a clustering of antilou here and a clustering of antilou back in that rear corner. And those both served well for both of those locations. And they're really drawing the eye of a nice contrasting coloration to the rest of the plants in the garden. So we have a nice dark green and yellow, and these Brazilian red cloaks with the greens. We needed something with kind of a year-round color, which is ideal. Those antilou will do a nice job of that. So right here, next to those guys are Brazilian red cloaks. This little grouping is not yet in bloom. I see buds all over them, but they're not quite there yet. These guys are gonna get that 6-7 foot height and range and really give you a nice grouping of that cone-shaped, gorgeous color. I just love their flower and what they offer. So it's really gonna take off and give them a lot of that. And these are such butterfly attractants. They're going to be stunning when they mature and get some size to them. I can't wait for that to happen. Right here, we have a really pretty leaf color. You can kind of see this little, just gorgeous individual leaf that's here with the green. This Muscianda is absolutely stunning. They're very, very nice. Now, this is their coldest location. They can't get, you want to plant them in nothing colder than zone 10A because they can get a little bit delicate when it comes to the cold, but they're so worth it because their blooming cycle is stunning. You get 8 to 10 months of blooms from them every year. They're just such a delicate, like a little look. Now, I don't like to use a lot of them. I just use like a little touch of those for a variation in color. Then just down below, we have the dwarf radamanchera. These are a dwarf jasmine tree. They have a little bit of a fragrance to them. It smells almost like a little citrusy. It's just really, really quite pretty. But they're gonna connect together and become big tree bushes. So they're gonna kind of round out. You'll have a little bit of a stem to them at the bottom, but they bloom a gorgeous white clustering flower. I've really been a big fan of them because they're just tough. I don't have hardly any issues with them, and I just love the way they look in the landscape. And their leaf is there's a lot of movement in the garden. So it's very soft, very just, I don't know, just so pleasant, especially when you're dealing with something like the Liriope down below that's more structured, that's more, just more tapered to the bottom. And then you get these guys that are just gonna be really wavy and really soft. So it's gonna be a nice touch there. Oh, we have a poor magenta fire spike that needs water desperately. We need to see what's going on with that. So it's a good thing we're visiting today. But you can kind of see what they're meant to be doing, which is the 2 guys right next to them, which is a beautiful magenta coloring and flower. Hummingbirds, butterflies alike love, love, love this plant. So you guys, you can plant this in the shade. You can plant this in the sun. It is going to bloom more in the sun and filtered light. Those are its two favorites. These are great. You can keep them this size. You can let them get 6 to 8 foot. You can keep them 4 foot. They're kind of keep them at your preference. I kind of wanted 3 individual ones as the backdrop from the screen room, from the main seating section. I wanted these 3 to kind of just be lit up with blooms as a backdrop. And then when they're not lit up with blooms, they're just such a pretty dark green, big leafed plant. I think they're just a stunner in the garden. So I think they're gonna do really, really well here. All right, so right here we have a touch of sloppy painters in a nice staggered grouping, and some Congo crotons. These are large leaf Congo. Look how dark the leaves are on these guys. The back sides of these leaves are just stunning. That's from the cold snap, a little bit of cold weather, they go dark like that. And then during the summer, you'll have more kind of light, bright coloration to them. So I love them in both seasons. We had a limb fall on this guy during a rainstorm, but it looks like he's popping back. They're just so tough. So don't be afraid. That's going to happen in gardens where you have oak trees or big palm trees. Leaves and limbs are going to fall, and that's just a part of keeping up with it. The best that you can, go out and pick the big guys off so that way it doesn't kind of completely squash your plants, but they'll pop right back like you see this guy is doing just that. All right, so as we move on to this corner, you can see these Brazilian red cloaks are starting to really take off in bloom. We've got new blooms and new color coming from everywhere on those. So in answer to your question that you probably have, will these bloom in the shade? I know I mention this all the time. They will bloom in the shade. So they can handle filtered light, they can handle full sun, and they can handle good shade. They do prefer filtered light. That's their ideal plant. If you put them in full sun, make sure that you add a little bit of a water or soaker hose to it, so that way it gets a little bit extra irrigation. So a little extra bubbler to your collection of your Brazilian red cloaks will make them bloom 10 times more. They really do get that good energy from that water source. So don't be afraid to add a little extra water to this particular plant for some happy blooms. So as we make our way back up to the walkway, let me mention this liriope. Now I know liriope does not get this big claim to fame because it is just a little tiny grass. You know, you want to edge any kind of walkway with a really nice edge line. Right here we have the aluminum alloy edging. You can use Buta edging. You can use whatever edging that you tend to work with. But you definitely want to edge your walkway so it stays dense and compact. That's the way to keep it like a true clean walkway. However, I don't love seeing the edges here. So when you put liriope along this edge, as it grows in, it's going to blur this. It's going to grow and just cover just the ends, but not so much so where you're having to dodge the plants because, you know, there's leaves everywhere. It's just going to give you a soft border. And when I have them, I try to stagger them where there's room, so that way it's a nice dense thick line instead of one row. If you can stagger them in areas, that'll give you that really dense kind of grassy feel. And I just think that's going to come together so well. And it also gives you more of that jungle carpet kind of look to it when they kind of come over just like that. You know, with the pathway alone, I mean, obviously I'm a fan of curving pathways from one entry point to another, but if you have something similar to what Barbara has here, Barbara and Pete had this big equipment area to the back, and their goal was like, how do we camouflage that? And I'm like, well, but you need to access that, right? So, you know, instead of camouflaging it, you could put some interesting layers to the front on either side that draw your eye away, but definitely take that pathway and make it user-friendly, because there's nothing worse than a pathway to nowhere. So having a pathway that goes and veers off to this way and then veers off this way almost looks like a multiple destination. Even though it's just going to the equipment area, it's still cool that it looks like it goes into that section. So I like that we were able to use that. All right, so as we move on to this section over here, you guys, this is a collection of the anti-lues I was talking about. So we have it balanced on both sides. Then we've got the soppy painters that will get into that 4-foot height there, and then a little bit of foxtail ferns, and then we've got a mixture of Song of India and ice tone crotons. And that's really to balance out the opposite side of the walkway. So it looks like we have an entry feature to both sections, or to both sides of the entryway of the walkway. This was from the original landscape that we got to work with, so it was great that we got to inherit the Montgomery palms. I think they're lovely. We have 2, 3, we have 2.5. So they lost one trunk, and they're gonna take out the whole tree. I'm so glad that they opted not to, because I think even though that it's a single, it doesn't always have to be exactly matchy-matchy. I would rather keep the tree there. That way we have some size and maturity that match each other. So I don't know, you guys tell me if you think you would have taken it out or if you would have kept it, but I lean towards kind of keeping it and working with what's here. Down below, I wanted something in this area. We don't get quite as much sun in this spot as we got over there where the bougainvilleas are. So these Ratamachera, which are the dwarf jasmine bushes that you saw over there, these are the tree variety of those. So these are gonna be nice little trees that are going to about double in size, and that's it. But I love this rounded head. If you guys like that kind of look and you don't want to fuss with the maintenance of bougainvillea, because you know bougainvillea gets a little crazy and wild on you, then Ratamachera tree might just be up your alley. They bloom a clustering of white blooms with a yellow center. So, so pretty with a nice little fragrance. It's not gardenia style fragrance. It's more softer, more subtle. Like I said, it was more citrusy, but a really, really pretty plant, really pretty little tree. And it's what we call in the landscape world patio trees, because you can keep them small. The trunks will get bigger, kind of like an olive tree does, but you can kind of keep it nice and rounded and small forever. But in this particular case, I would love to see it the size of the walls. That would be just kind of a nice intermediate look to Montgomery palms. And then we ended with one right there outside her bedroom window. And I think that's going to give her a nice blast of color in this particular area. Instead of having an outline of grass here, we have some Carissa boxwood that are just going to kind of outline this area right along this edge and kind of grow right to the edge of the pavers, giving a great defined line of a dark green, and then allowing this to be a little wild and crazy with the foxtail ferns, kind of letting them be their thing. These were existing to the landscaping, and I think they looked nice amongst the trees, so we just cleaned them up and kept them. It looks like they could use another cleaning, but I think that they're really a cool kind of different take on leaf texture here. When these guys grow in, these Carissa boxwood, you're gonna have a shiny, glossy, compact, very controlled kind of boxwood-like leaf. I think the combination of this is gonna be a perfect defined outline to something a little bit wild and crazy. And it's just something so simple. There's not a lot of room here, so you can see we don't have many layers going on in this particular bed. But considering we have all that going on back there, I love to keep the sides simple. If you guys have oak trees, you may have the same problem here. We've got oak trees with the tree well here and tons of roots. So when you have that, you need to bring in plant material that has a small root system, or something that when you're planting it, you can cut half of that root ball off and plant that plant. And that's exactly what we did here. So these right here, this is silver odorata bromeliad. And when you plant these guys, this was a 15-gallon plant, which means that the plant root ball is about this big and about this big, which is pretty significant, but this is a big canopy, so that's what you want to start with. But because of all the roots in here, we cut that down to where it's just a few inches of the root ball, because it doesn't rely on that. So we were able to really plant a big plant in here with very little root ball. So that's when you're dealing with plants. Agaves are perfect for that. You can cut that root ball almost entirely off. Bromeliads are that way. You can cut that root ball almost entirely off. It's ideal to work with because they're not really having to fight that root system. And then we have a grouping. Right here is a Johannes bromeliad. I commonly get the question which bromeliad can handle the sun. These can handle the sun like a champ. They're ideal for this type of situation. They can handle the bounce back heat from the pavers, but these Johannes bromeliad have that beautiful flamboyant green and yellow with tips of pink on them. I just think they're gorgeous, especially when they're paired with plants like these guys, which are the Margaret bromeliads, or some people know them as marguerites. They're a dark tone, and they handle. They're both in the Neo family, but they're very tough, sun-loving plants, and they're not that orange flame variety, which is what I like. They kind of hold that pink coloring real well. Then we have some Begonia odoratas underneath the oak tree, and then those ice tone crotons that you guys may have seen in the front yard. And I just love how compact these guys are. Now these are the 7-gallon size here, so you can see they're more rounded, more dense. Those are the 3-gallon size down below. You can tell they're much younger plant, but they will eventually get into a chunkier version, but not much bigger than what you see here. They will chunk out a little bit more, but they're easy to keep at a small height, and that's what we wanted here. We kind of wanted a little bit of a wall, but nothing that was going to be up here. She always wanted to be able to see what was going on behind this area. You guys will have to tell me, did you miss the grass? Would something like this work for your garden? Do you like the idea of grabbing a cup of coffee and walking through the backyard space like you're walking through a botanical garden? Is this kind of your thing, or do you like the clean look of grass? And that's okay either way, but I'm hoping that this video maybe gave you some inspiration for taking a small yard from a yard to more of a little garden setting. This is a very young landscaping, but I would say over the next year, it's going to become that tropical garden of Barbara's dreams, which I cannot wait to see that happen. Hopefully she'll have us back and we'll get a chance to see everything fully matured and all lush and filled in. Thank you guys so much for joining us on today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, you might check out Barbara and Pete's video from last week, which was their front yard garden tour, which we will put right here. So that way you guys can click on that and check out that and enjoy it. Thank you so much. We will see you next Saturday for our very next video. You guys take care.